Imagine waking up tomorrow with exactly the same job, the same salary, the same bills, the same apartment. Nothing around you has changed, but somehow your financial future is completely different. Not because you suddenly made more money, because you started seeing money differently. That sounds strange. Steve thought so too. This is Steve. Steve isn't bad with money. At least that's what he tells himself. He doesn't buy yachts. He doesn't gamble. He doesn't make crazy financial decisions. He's just normal. He works hard, pays his bills, gets excited every payday, feels slightly guilty every time he checks his bank account near the end of the month, then repeats the whole cycle again. Maybe you've been there too. Steve always believed money was the goal. More money meant a better life, more freedom, more happiness, more security. So every time he imagined his future, he imagined a bigger bank account. But one conversation completely changed that. Steve met an older coworker who had earned a good salary for decades. Nice house, nice car, good career. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But during lunch, the coworker quietly admitted something. I've made good money my whole life, and somehow I still feel behind. Steve couldn't stop thinking about those words. How could someone earn so much and still feel like they never had enough? At first, Steve assumed it was just bad budgeting, but then he started paying attention. Not to how much people earned, but to how they thought. And he noticed something fascinating. People with similar incomes often lived completely different financial lives. One person constantly felt stressed, another felt calm. One person always needed more, the other seemed perfectly in control. The difference wasn't always income, it was perspective. Steve realized he'd spent years treating money like oxygen. Every dollar that came in immediately had to go somewhere. There was never enough, never a cushion, never breathing room. Money felt temporary, like water running through his hands. Then one evening he wrote something on a piece of paper. Every dollar has a job. It sounds simple, almost too simple. But until that moment, Steve had never actually told his money where to go. He simply wondered where it went afterward. That tiny shift changed everything. Instead of reacting to money, he started directing it. And directing money feels completely different from chasing it. Around the same time, Steve noticed another habit. Every purchase came with an invisible sentence. I deserve this. Bad day? I deserve takeout. Worked hard? I deserve something nice. Feeling bored? I deserve a little reward. The purchases weren't really about the items. They were emotional decisions wearing financial clothes. That realization made Steve uncomfortable. Because he wasn't buying things, he was buying feelings. And feelings disappear much faster than money. By the way, if you've ever reached the end of the month wondering where your paycheck went, you're definitely not alone. That's exactly why this channel exists. No fake millionaire lifestyle. No impossible promises. Just practical money lessons through stories that actually sound like real life. And if that's the kind of content you enjoy, consider subscribing. Now, here's where Steve's thinking changed forever. One day, he heard a sentence that sounded almost ridiculous. Money is stored time. He laughed at first, then he started thinking about it. Every dollar represented hours of his life. That expensive jacket? Several hours. That weekend impulse purchase? Almost an entire workday. That monthly subscription he never used? Another hour of life. Suddenly, prices looked different. Steve stopped asking, can I afford this? And started asking, is this worth the time I traded for it? That question was much harder to answer. Then came another breakthrough. Steve realized most people chase income. Very few chase ownership. Employees earn income. Owners build assets. Assets don't have to be huge businesses. A useful skill is an asset. A loyal audience is an asset. Knowledge is an asset. A digital product is an asset. Investments are assets. Anything that keeps creating value after you've built it is an asset. Steve had spent years improving his lifestyle. He had spent almost no time improving his assets. So he flipped the order. Instead of rewarding himself first, he invested in himself first. Books, courses, practice, tools, learning. At first, it didn't feel exciting. Nobody complimented him for buying a course instead of new shoes. Nobody noticed him spending weekends learning instead of shopping. But Steve noticed something. His confidence started growing. Because confidence often comes from competence. The more useful he became, the more opportunities appeared. Not because the world suddenly became fair, because Steve finally had something valuable to offer. Then he discovered perhaps the biggest mindset shift of all. Money is not a scorecard, it's a tool. Some people use money to impress strangers, others use money to buy freedom. The amount isn't always what matters. How you use it matters far more. Steve stopped trying to look successful. He started trying to become difficult to replace. Those are two completely different goals. One costs money, the other creates it. Months passed. Steve's salary hadn't doubled. His life hadn't magically transformed. But something much more important had changed. He felt calmer. He worried less. He planned more. He reacted less. He thought longer. He spent intentionally. And strangely enough, his savings began growing almost automatically. Not because he had discovered some secret investment, because he had stopped making unconscious decisions. Eventually, Steve realized something he'll probably never forget. Rich people don't necessarily think about money more often. They simply think about it differently. They see opportunities where others see problems, assets where others see expenses, long-term value where others see instant gratification. That doesn't make them better. It just leads them toward different decisions. And decisions quietly shape everything. Remember, Steve, the guy who believed more money would solve every problem. The guy who thought financial success started with a bigger paycheck. The guy who eventually realized that changing his mindset came before changing his bank account. Because once your thinking changes, your decisions change. Your habits change. Your opportunities change. And eventually, your financial life changes too. So the next time money lands in your account, don't just ask how much you earned. Ask what that money can build. Ask what future version of you will thank you for. Ask whether you're spending to feel better or building something better. That one shift might completely change the way you think about money forever. If this story made you look at money a little differently, hit the like button. And tell me in the comments, what's one belief about money you've changed over the years? I'd genuinely love to read your answers. And if you enjoy practical money lessons, relatable stories, and simple strategies that actually make sense, subscribe and join Steve on the journey. Because wealth rarely begins in your bank account. It begins in the way you think.